hi, so we meet again. Anyways, I'm just kidding. This is kind of an impromptu video, again, as I've mentioned in other videos, but you've probably never been to this channel. So let me just go ahead and say, hi, I hope you're well. This video today is going to be kind of addressing Jeffree Star, Eugenia Cooney, Rich Lux, Rich Lux's interviews with Eugenia Cooney. Interviews is kind of how I say it. I'm not outside today. I am in my house. I normally film outside, but the sun's going down. It's getting a bit chilly here in the Midwest, so I decided I wanted to just get on in my house, which not the most photographic place or photogenic place, but good enough, I guess. But anyways, so I'm going to touch on the Jeffree Star, Rich Lux, Eugenia stuff. I might touch a little bit on a couple other people. Not really sure. We'll see when we get there. But I kind of just want to talk about it from like a perspective of just a consumer, somebody that watches this stuff but isn't really involved with any of it other than just watching it for several years. That's literally my connection with any of these people. I don't know any of them on a personal level. I think I know, you can kind of tell a person like by watching them for several years, but obviously you don't know everything that goes on in their life, and you only see what they put on a camera, which is sometimes highly edited. So let's get right into this. So if you know nothing about the situation at all, let me just start to unpack it for you, okay? I'm not going to go into super detail or anything. I more so want to just talk about my comments on it, but not really so much like what actually happened. So let me try to just unwrap it just very small, okay? Okay, so you bring in like the people, Rich Lux, Eugenia Cooney, Jeffree Star. You obviously all know them already, but did you know that Rich Lux decided to bring Eugenia Cooney onto his channel twice? There wasn't really a whole lot. I mean, they were interviews. The first one was just by himself, Rich Lux, and Eugenia. And then in the second one, you had Rich Lux, Eugenia Cooney, and Jeffree Star who came in. Jeffree Star and Eugenia have, I guess, a little bit of a history, a little bit of a friendship from back in like the MySpace days, which was a long time ago. So right off the bat, me watching this interview, either one, doesn't really matter, watching both of them, and I watched the majority of each of them. I don't think I finished the one with all three of them, but I did watch, I think, the full one of just Rich Lux and Eugenia. And it is very clear to me as a consumer that Rich Lux is partial toward Eugenia. Not in such a way that he's going to like protect her at all costs, but he was giving more of like we have a working relationship together, like a working as in like they're colleagues or influencer friends, or they just follow some of the same people online. They have a connection, and it definitely showed. Like it showed that he had some bias in there. And then of course, it was either the next day or shortly after that. That was whenever the three of them did their call together. There were questions asked, but they weren't about the obvious, which everybody clicked to watch. Everybody knows Eugenia by her small frame. People were expecting Rich to ask her these types of questions about like seeking therapy again, or why are you as small as you are, or all those types of questions. Of course, there were rude questions in there too, because this is the internet, right? So then you also had some pretty terrible or some not so nice comments about her body, her length of life left, those kinds of things. But I think Rich he was trying to stay as not necessarily neutral as possible, but trying to keep the conversation upbeat, kind of try to, keep it nice, guys, keep it friendly in the chat, that kind of thing. Funny enough, the next day when Jeffree joined the chat, when all three of them were talking together, Jeffree actually became a mod. Like he was like, Rich, make me a mod. And so he starts, blocking people out that are making these. So like, it was very obvious, even if you can just rewatch without reading comments or anything like that, you can hear that there are apparently negative comments if Jeffree wants to be a mod to get rid of some of these people, kick them out. So there's definitely, so I wanted to lay that down first. Like there's definitely a bias here in that situation, but that's the gist of the situation at hand. So Rich comes on in a video today, actually, and he talks about, well, I am addressing the comments about the Eugenia stuff because he apparently received a lot of backlash off of this, a lot of negative comments on his channel both times about him being, you know, an enabler or an ED apologist, those kinds of things. So he addressed those comments today, and from his perspective, he's trying to stay at a non-offensive, safe disposition. He's trying to stay in, like, because in his mind he felt as if he was being so honored with that in the first place. He didn't want to mess it up. He didn't want to offend her and her not talk to him again, or her close up and, you know, basically push him out. So that was his position, which then of course you have the commenters who are now coming back because his video just went live a couple of hours ago, maybe a few hours by the time this is uploaded, but apparently his commenters thought very differently. I think what I wanted to get across in this video is that there is a blurred line between the people who are actually bullying Eugenia and the empathizers or the sympathizers who genuinely want her to get help. Me personally, as somebody who doesn't watch her content very often unless it comes across some of the higher influencers channels, like with this one, with being Rich Lux, and I like the drama channels, I will be more apt to watch her there. I was around YouTube whenever her twerking video went viral. If you want to call that a twerking video, I was around for that. I've kind of been around for a long time. I've just haven't really talked about it until recently. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is that there's a blurred line between both of the people who are actually bullying her and trying to get her offline, which that might be what she needs in order to recover fully. Maybe not. She really, like, her hand should be in a doctor's hands, right? Not her commentators, not the comment sections. Like, she needs advice from her doctor, nobody else. And maybe her cure would be getting off the internet, moving out of her house, like, you list whatever you want to list. Like, maybe that is what gets her better, but nobody can say that because nobody is her doctor. So, I mean, her doctor, but her doctor is not the one online criticizing, telling her to do these things. So, there's a line blurred there. And then, but there are true people who feel bad. But there are people that are actually empathizers that want her to be her healthiest self and her most thriving self. But you can't force her in the same respect. And that is something that people talk about a lot. They will say, like, she's an adult. You know, that's the other side of it, is she's an adult. She can make her own decisions. In the same respect, on the other side, which is complicated too, is that, okay, yes, she's a grown adult. She can make her own decisions. And nobody knows what kind of trauma she's had growing up. Is she, you know, can she make those decisions? Like, can she make those decisions informed? Like, can she make those decisions being informed with her trauma, with everything? And everybody suffers trauma, right? So then at one point, is it like, well, we are going to, you know, either say that, yeah, she's an adult and she can make these decisions, or are we going to say she's incompetent and can't make those decisions? But at what point of incompetence can you not make those decisions? She needs to want to get treatment, not her being forced into treatment, which is really hard because the people that are pleading with her to please go get treatment aren't really, they're being mean, or, you know, they're not really being mean to her, but to her, she's perceiving that as they're being mean to me. The bullies who are telling her that she has to go get help, the bullies who are telling her that she's going to X, Y, and Z in 5 years and not be able to make content anymore, if you know what I mean. The people that are backhanded, like, I want you to get help, but, and then proceeds to say something super negative towards her, she might not be receptive to it. Probably not. And especially from people that she doesn't even know. You don't even know her in real life. So I'm not trying to come across here as somebody who is like, oh, she doesn't need help. She's, you know, blah, blah, blah. I think she probably does need help. I think we all need help. I think we should all seek therapy, physical and or emotional. Like, I think we should all have therapy. Obviously, there is a physical ailment of some sort going on there, in my opinion, as somebody who can just observe somebody. But you can't force her to do something if she doesn't want to do it necessarily, unless unless the government steps in, essentially, right? So the people who are trying to force her aren't any better than her resistance. Does that make sense? Like, people who are trying to force her to do things are backhanding her by saying certain things. It's like, you're not helping the situation. You're actually kind of enabling her to keep doing what she's doing. This isn't, I'm not trying to talk reverse psychology here. This is just like what's coming up in my mind. Like, it's almost like the people who want her to get help or are trying to push her towards getting help aren't helping, because it's actually making her want to stay the same, to not change. So really, these people who might have good intentions, might not, might have no intentions, them saying all these negative things whilst also trying to like push her, like me saying this terrible thing is going to make her go to therapy, are no better than her resistance to getting therapy. Just a thought. Okay, I want to point out a little something too, and this is no shade, nothing like that. It's just something that I observed. Rich said in his video today, he said that Eugenia, how do you say it? Eugenia could look in the mirror today and see what she looks like. He doesn't have to tell her that she is thin, she is tall, she is whatever. You know, he doesn't have to tell her these things. And that's not verbatim. Don't quote me on that. He said something along those lines. That was near the end of his video. He was talking about that. And it made me think a little bit, because I was thinking it might not be for her. Like, she might not be able to see her actual like self. I'm a psychology major. Hey, 4-year degree, undergrad. But in basic psych 101, or abnormal psychology, there's different classes you can take for this. But in psychology, they tell you that body dysmorphia is a thing. And body dysmorphia doesn't really allow for you to see yourself the way everybody else sees you necessarily. Or you might see yourself as really big, but you might be really thin, or you might see yourself as kind of small. It's kind of like if you've ever been, it's similar, and it actually might be the same thing, just different context, of course. Have you ever seen the things where you have like somebody that is like really big, or they're obese, and then they lose, 100 or 200 pounds, and they're carrying all this extra skin, they get their surgery done, they get all the loose skin removed, but they still, when they're looking in the mirror, whenever they're buying clothes out at the market or whatever, they're like, I still feel like that X pound person, that big person. When I look in the mirror, I still see that person. That's also body dysmorphia, but in a different context. So I thought that was interesting that he said that she could look at herself in the mirror. I don't think he meant that like in a physical way, and maybe he just doesn't know about body dysmorphia. But if you've ever been to a psychology class, or you might not have, you might have experience in this, or you might just like understand it based off of knowing about EDs. Another thing Jeffree did, which I thought was kind of interesting, is that he was making like jokes with Eugenia about just like certain things, whatever. But it was interesting because you can tell that they do have some sort of relationship outside of just like YouTube, like that they've talked in the past and stuff like that. You can tell that they have rapport with each other, because like he's joking with her, he's playing with her like, the casual person would with their friends, So the last thing I wanted to touch on, so I'm going to try to wrap this up. The last thing I want to touch on really fast is the Jaclyn Glenn part of this, because she's been getting brought back up again. Okay, so sorry about the change in scenery and the change of everything about my video. I got interrupted by my family. So had to go and do the family thing, and now I'm back. I wanted to leave one last little thing here though. I want to talk about Jaclyn Glenn a little bit. She's been brought back into the conversation and stuff like that by several commentators and stuff like that because of her involvement with Eugenia Cooney a few years ago. If you don't know, a few years ago, Jaclyn Glenn had basically orchestrated an intervention for Eugenia, and then that led to having a 5150 placed on Eugenia, and then Eugenia agreeing to go into treatment. So that's that part of it. My opinion on that situation, well, Jaclyn, I understand both sides of it here. I can see a side where people are like, well, Jaclyn had no business doing this because Jaclyn was, just somebody online who wanted to make her, make Eugenia get help, and orchestrated all of this by talking about things behind her back and then lying to Eugenia so that Eugenia would come over so that she could do all these things. I can see where that part of it is, because it's like if Eugenia wanted help, she could get help. Okay. And then I also see the other side of it, which I think I lean more towards this side of it. But, and that's because I am a natural, I really feel strongly for my friends, and I'm very protective of my friends, and I want all of my friends to be the healthiest versions of themselves. So I can see where Jaclyn kind of, I think, where maybe she was coming from, and that Jaclyn came across to me as somebody who was trying to just help her friend survive, help her friend live her best life. It seemed to me as though Jaclyn had pure intentions on helping Eugenia. She thought that Eugenia would maybe be grateful later on after getting, help and getting therapy and all of those things. But that's not what happened, right? We all know that Jaclyn and Eugenia are no longer friends. So obviously Eugenia took it some sort of way as a betrayal. Jaclyn thought she was doing the best thing and helping her friend, in my opinion, at least. But those are kind of my thoughts about it. I think that Rich has, I don't know if he has the purest of intentions, but I think that he just wanted to interview her because of his passion for talking and understanding different types of people. I think that Eugenia, I personally think and hope that someday Eugenia gets the help that she needs. As somebody who has seen people in her own life, I have seen people in my life go through very similar struggles as her. And so I would hope that she can find the peace that she needs, and I hope that she can find the right treatment, and I hope she can find the best way for her and for her health. But anyway, so I do think that Rich was genuine, though. I think he was just getting the interview to get the interview, to talk to him. I just saw that recently with the Swoop documentary where she interviewed Joshua David Evans, and this was a while back now, but she interviewed him, and many people saw him as a villain, but he has a side to the story too, and sometimes there's multiple victims in a situation, sometimes there's not. Sometimes there's only one, sometimes everybody's done wrong. And I think that might be the case in many of these situations. I think that many people just do things wrong. But just because you do something wrong doesn't always make you a bad person. I think it can essentially show your character and stuff like that, but I don't think doing one thing wrong, making one mistake, makes you a bad person. So anyways, that's it, I believe. Thank you for staying. If you stay, probably not, but anyways, okay. Talk to y'all whenever I do. Okay, bye.